I have always respected your concern about democracy and have read that book, as a matter of fact. It seems to me that we're well on our way to an oligopoly, and I was just wanting you to, see how you felt about that. That you give evidence in there,
Right.
person by person.
I'm listening.
And but I think it's time for us to think about changing the system. The system has been set up to make sure that the majority of people do not rule. And I look at the maps of the electoral sections, and the red sections are in all of the places in this country with few people. The blue sections are in the places with most of the people, the majority of people. And I think that the election of 2000 was stolen. And once stolen, it's really hard to get it back.
Well, I reached for the book, and I have some thoughts on that, but a lot of other people are a lot smarter than I am, and that's why I talk to them. And here's an interview in the book with a marvelous young economist, used to be at the IMF, named Simon Johnson. He's now one of the hottest economists on the circuit, and he has a blog that everybody should read called BaselineScenario.com. But he'd written an article on that website, and it's mentioned in here, called High Noon: Geithner, Secretary of the Treasury, versus the American oligarchs. And I wanted to know more. So I asked him, what are you signaling with that headline, Geithner versus the American oligarchs? Answer, I'm signaling something a bit shocking to Americans, and to myself, actually. The situation we find ourselves in at this moment is very strongly reminiscent of the situations we've seen many times in other places, but places we don't like to think are similar to us. Emerging markets like Russia, Indonesia, Thailand, Korea. Not comfortable comparisons. We somehow find ourselves in the grip of the same sort of crisis and the same sort of oligarchs as in those countries. I say to him, oligarchy is an un-American term. As you know, it means a government by a small number of people. We don't like to think of ourselves as that way. He says, I know people react negatively when we use this term oligarchy. It's a way of governing. It comes from a system tried in Greece and Athens from time to time, a very simple, straightforward idea from Aristotle. It's political power based on economic power, and it was actually an antithesis to democracy in that context. A small group with a lot of wealth and a lot of power. They pull the strings, they have the influence, they call the shots. It's disproportionate, it's unfair, it's very unproductive, and it undermines business in this society. It's the rise of the banks in economic terms that translates into political power. They then exercise that political power back into more deregulation, more opportunities to go out and take reckless risks and capture huge amounts of money. The big banks become stronger as a result of the bailout. That may seem extraordinary, but it's really true. They're turning that increased economic clout into more political power. And they're using that political power to go out and take the same sort of risks that got us into disaster in September 2008. There's more on that subject.
One of the few chapters I didn't read.
Well, you don't have to now, I just read it. But that's my greatest concern. If any one beat marks my 40-year career as a journalist, all the more so because I did come out of Washington back to journalism, it is money in politics. We like to think that your vote matters as much as anybody else's, but it doesn't matter as much as their dollars, because the polls all show a majority of people want environmental protection. They want greater equality in society. They want to rebuild the infrastructure. We should start with some of the highways around here. But they can't get it done because Congress and, frankly, the state legislatures are controlled by organized interests with money. And there's no antidote to organized money except for organized people. And we've lost that capacity except for isolated cases of rallying together and mounting a sustained protest like the one that finally brought about an end to the segregationist laws in the South. So your question goes right to the heart of my great concern today about the power of money to trump the votes of people who want a more progressive America. Did I see